Very well.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Chair, are we ready to go?
Yes, we are ready to go.
Yeah, thank you. Right, this is a public notice that notice of this meeting has been duly published and posted in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. And this is the regular meeting, the 1136th regular meeting of the Housing Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City. And with your permission, Chair, I will now do the opening roll call. Commissioner
Okay.
Devenish. Commissioner Devenish, no response. Commissioner Dorsey.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Gabay. Commissioner Gabay. No response. Commissioner Hossain. Commissioner Hossain. No response. Commissioner Johnson.
Mrs. Johnson, you're on mute.
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh.
All right. Commissioner
Thank you.
Johnson, present.
present.
Commissioner Tweedle.
Present.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Marshall.
Present.
All right. 4 members present. That is a quorum to continue and conduct business. The next order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United
United
States
States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
Yeah,
one
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda, item number 3, is participation of the public.
All right. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
I would like to speak.
Okay. Could you state your name, please?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deirdre Brock. I'm the manager here at Stanley Homes. I just want to say that these last 9 months have been very, very challenging, not just for the staff, but especially the residents. And I'm getting a whole lot of questions about, are they going to be reimbursed for not having a refrigerator or stove since the week before Thanksgiving? I told them that I could not answer that question, that I would reach out to you guys to see if that question could be answered.
Okay. Okay. For the question, John, do you want to address that now or do you?
Well, yeah, it's a comment. So yeah, it would be a board policy discussion that the executive committee would have. As you know, we talked about doing reimbursements and those things. That's a policy decision, so you'd have to address it at the executive committee level.
Okay.
And that can be done through a policy or a procedure. It doesn't have to be, it's really at the pleasure of the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Brock. I see a hand raised for a 732 cell number, telephone number.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hello, my name is Charlie Cradaville. I'm the editor of New Brunswick Today. I'll start my remarks by saying thank you and Mr. Manfredi and the ACHA IT department for making sure that people can access today's meeting by telephone. And, also for your information, this meeting is being broadcast live on New Brunswick Today. I want to stress that I have concerns about public access to government meetings. And, I did receive a response from Mr. Manfredi in response to the questions I had asked at your most recent public meeting. Was told that there were no board meetings held in September 22 or October 22 because the ACHA was in a leadership transition and due to delays caused by the zero threshold restrictions. You know, I'm no lawyer, but the zero threshold restrictions did not restrict this board from holding meetings, did they?
Mr. Clark,
Yeah, Chair, this is a comment period. If there are questions, I'm sure, just as Mr. Manfredi answered the last round from
Sounds like
Mr.
you
Cradaville.
already got legal answers, so there's nothing for us to discuss.
But if there's further questions, Mr. Cradaville, if you want to put those just like Mr. Manfredi answered, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, well, I think it's a fairly straightforward question. It sounded like the chair was referring the question to Mr. Clark. I don't see what the problem is with getting questions answered during the meeting. Madam Chair, can Mr. Clark just tell us if the zero threshold restrictions restricted the board from holding meetings?
Madam Chair, point of order. This is the public comment section. This is not the public interrogatory section. Public is to comment and direct any questions to administration or legal. It's not a question and answer. It's not an interrogation. It's not an investigation. If we were questioning, I'd question what the gentleman from New Brunswick has business in Atlantic City, but we're not. So can we?
May I ask a question? It's Michelle Post with the Atlantic City Press.
Michelle,
Is
we
there
want
a
to
point of order? Is Mr. Cradaville still has some time,
Oh,
I
I'm
believe.
sorry. I
Chair.
thought you were finished. I'm sorry.
There's 5-minute commentary, Chair. I don't know if Mr. Cradaville is completed.
Well, first of all, no one told me there's a 5-minute limit. No one told me there's no questions allowed. I'd like to ask the gentleman who interrupted me what the source of his belief that there are not questions allowed in this setting. He seems to be citing something but didn't say where he got that from. Can he tell us?
It's actually 3 minutes, and I know Mr. Manfredi did send you an email. If you have any more questions, you can feel free to email Mr. Manfredi.
And what is the source of the 3-minute limit? Mr. Manfredi, your attorney, was under the impression it was 5 minutes.
It's 3 minutes, and that's the case with most public meetings. You get 3 minutes to speak.
In New Brunswick, we get 5, and Mr. Clark is our executive director in New Brunswick, and I'm concerned because our meeting yesterday was canceled, and I'd like to know, was the meeting in New Brunswick canceled because Mr. Clark was too busy getting ready to work this other job in Atlantic City and have the first board meeting in a while in Atlantic City? And I'll note that while Mr. Manfredi did provide written responses to the questions I asked at your last meeting, that those responses came 4 hours ago, like 6 weeks or 7 weeks after I had asked the question. So I don't think it's sufficient, since you've been canceling a lot of your board meetings and New Brunswick's canceling a lot of their board meetings. I don't think it's sufficient for you to tell me that I can't ask questions during this proceeding. And the gentleman who interrupted me still has not provided any source for his belief that questions cannot be asked here. I'm going to Oprah request the videos of your meetings, and I'm sure I'll find examples of people asking questions and getting them answered. My question was very simple, and I gotta call you out and say that the response that I got from Mr. Manfredi on why you didn't hold meetings in September and October doesn't pass muster. The zero threshold restrictions do not restrict you from having meetings. In fact, being in a leadership transition or the zero threshold situation would give reason to have more frequent meetings and more public input, but it seems that your board wanted to take a few months off and didn't hold a meeting for 3 straight months. And so now I've taken an interest in Atlantic City, and I am exercising my right to be a part of this call and to speak my mind. And I think that that should include answers to my questions. If you have nothing to hide, I think you'd be behaving differently. So I hope that I can get answers to the questions I've asked, and I hope that I can get them, sooner than 7 weeks from now. So while I do appreciate the effort to make sure I can call in on the phone today, I have to say the answers you've been providing to the important questions have been unsatisfactory, and you haven't been upfront about how you run these meetings.
All right.
Because
Thank
the
you
rules
very
seem to
much.
keep
Your
changing.
time is up.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Michelle Post.
Yeah, hi. Actually, I'm with the Atlantic City Press, and I had a similar concern last meeting. And I asked you guys to please reconsider this idea of not answering questions, because this is the one time that people can ask you things. And it's really not fair that even if you're going to respond to a questioner, to that one single person, that other people who are on this call who might have the same question don't get the answer. So I really hope that you will reconsider this, that you will be more open, that you will just answer simple questions when they're asked to you. I had a question, which was, HUD told me that they were doing another kind of, not investigation, inspection. Either late this month or early in February. And forgive me, I can't remember the word they used, for it, but if you could just address any upcoming or ongoing HUD investigations right now, I'd really appreciate the answer now.
Madam Chair, the word investigation here is inaccurate, but also we can't
Yeah,
discuss
no,
those
I
matters here in
can't
public.
remember the term. Forgive me. It was, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but there was some other kind of review they were doing. And I was hoping to get more information about that from you.
Mr. Clark, are you
Oh,
aware
sorry,
of another review?
Madam Chair, point of order. Madam Chair, point of order again. I would stress that we maintain our position and not get into question and answer, which
Mr. Dorsey,
delays our
why do you
meeting and
not want to
continue with
answer
our
questions at this
public comment.
meeting? That's ridiculous.
That's a
I'm
question,
sorry,
Ms.
it's
Post.
ridiculous.
That's a question, Ms. Post.
I'm expressing my opinion that it's ridiculous that you are refusing to answer questions at a public meeting.
Michelle, I know Mr. Clark has been in contact with you and did explain, I'm not familiar with another review.
Yeah,
John-
Michelle, if you shoot me an email, I'll figure. I'll
But
find
don't
out
you see what
it-
I'm saying? Everyone has the right to these answers. It shouldn't be, you'll
Michelle,
talk to me
Michelle,
off, you know.
I just said I'm not familiar with another review.
No, Mr. Clark was saying he would talk to me later. Everybody should get this information.
John, are you familiar with another review?
There are a number of inspections and reviews scheduled. I don't know which one she's talking about. That's why.
Well, can you
Chair-
please describe
Chair, that's why I
any
was saying. that I
any
would speak to her
inspections
later.
and reviews
Yeah,
that are
Ma-
coming up? Any and all? Can
Madam
you
Chair,
describe?
the difficulty we face, Madam Chair, with the time limit is that a conversation like that could take 45 minutes.
Oh, come
depending
on,
on
folks.
what Mr.
Come on,
Clark
folks.
just
This
said.
is a serious situation you have going on in there. Step to the plate and give us some information, please.
Michelle, I'm not familiar with no other investigation.
Mr. Clark is, and he could easily tell us what investigations or inspections or
I'm not
reviews
aware
are
of
coming
it.
up.
Again, you keep, Chair, I'd be happy to, there are some inspections and a compliance review. Is that what you're talking about?
That was the term, yes.
Okay. I am familiar, yes. So that's the term you're looking for. HUD is looking to do a compliance review in the near future, yes.
And can you describe that? What does that entail?
Chair, it's,
Time is up.
I'd be happy to go over that. Michelle, obviously, I can't take the meeting up to do that, but it's really at the pleasure of the chair.
Oh, folks,
she wants
you
me to-
know,
if she wants me to
this-
answer that.
if this is the way you're gonna conduct meetings, I really think you should be ashamed of yourselves.
John, could you just briefly in 15 seconds, just go over?
I'd be happy to,
I
Chair.
mean, yeah, because
Sure, compliance reviews are usually conducted to look at a framework of time and activities during that framework of time. So it could be everything from site inspections to payments of bills, to operation manuals, to training, those types of things. That's typically what HUD compliance reviews are. They're also doing site inspections for their engineering department. I don't know if that's what you were referring to, Michelle. But those are typically done on site with inspections where they come out with their engineers and they go through pretty much on a site-by-site checklist. Those are
And will that be focusing on the boilers or will it be everything?
I don't know. Usually it encompasses everything. And it's a framework of time, not necessarily a specific item, usually. But that's a HUD, again, we don't work for HUD. Those are HUD compliance items, so they determine what it is they want to look at.
Okay.
If those are the two things you're talking about. I'm not aware of any other ones.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public who wish to speak? Is there anyone else from the public who wish to speak? Asking one more time, anyone else from the public who wish to speak? All right, citing none. Rick, Commissioner Gabay is now in the meeting as well.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Okay, and we can move on to the next agenda item.
Very well, thank you. The next item is item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes from the December 8th meeting of the board. Could I have a motion to approve?
Motion Tweedle.
Thank you. A second?
Second, Marshall.
Johnson.
Okay.
Thank you. And a roll call vote. Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay,
Hey,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, Commissioner. Was that a yes to the minutes?
abstain. I wasn't in there for the
Oh,
meeting.
abstain. All right, thank you. Commissioner Tweedle
Yes.
and Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. The minutes are approved by a vote of 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Item number 5 on the agenda is reports of board committees.
Okay, Mr. Clark.
In absence of Commissioner Devon as chair, would you like me to give the personnel committee or you want to give the personnel?
You could give the personnel committee report.
Okay, the Personnel Committee has met several times now to discuss personnel matters, some of which will be going into closed session today. The committee has also been working to go through the solicitations for the full-time executive director position. And Chair, you want to just give an update? You want me just to say it's ongoing and that committee hopes to have recommendations on the top 5 candidates to move forward for interviews shortly. You want to do the executive committee or you want me to do that?
You could give the executive committee report. Thanks.
Executive committee has met and continues to work through operations matters. And will continue to meet throughout this ongoing emergency declaration process. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted me to add on the committee side, Chair.
No, that's it.
Chair, just a point of order. I will be further on in this. We'll be asking you to consider forming a new committee for the Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant. We are, as you will find out in the presentation tonight, we're really starting to get into some pretty tight framework documents that we're going to need, you know, a representation from the board and the committee to work with that working group so we can move from the draft plan to what we hope to be a final plan. So I'll do that separately or as part of the presentation. You might hear that in a little bit.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Chair, was that the last of the committee reports?
That's all I had for committees, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Item number 6 on the agenda is the report of the treasurer.
Good evening all. The board report is distributed. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well. Moving on to item 7, report of the secretary.
Thank you. Chair, as you know, the Housing Authority continues to operate under the declaration of emergency that was put into a position. I am pleased to report that the authority has received notice from HUD of relief from the 0 threshold restrictions. That's going to allow the authority to be to address a lot of the areas and items that required sort of 3rd and 4th step approvals. We've already mobilized to do a number of things, and for a brief summary on some of the procurement and purchasing updates, I would like to have Jerry Velopi, who's our purchasing QPA, give a summary kind of where we are with our orders, purchasing, and some other RFPs that are on the street right now.
Okay, Jerry.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Brief update, very brief update is we are operating under various emergency declarations by the city, by the housing authority. And as such, the majority of our procurements have been conducted pursuant to the emergency procurement rules and regulations. Several things have been happening. As Executive Director Clark just mentioned, the zero threshold has been lifted while the date of the letter is late December. It's actually about 2 weeks that we've been operating. We didn't receive it until early January. Having said that, a significant number of items have been either procured and or solicited. Most recently, we have publicly advertised for receipt of either bids or RFPs immediately for sanitation removal, special legal counsel. They were advertised on Monday of this week in the Press of Atlantic City, the Courier Press, and the Society pages. In addition to that, we were finalizing and legal ads have been placed and will appear in the same periodicals on Monday or Tuesday of next week for bed bug treatment, landscaping, snow removal, ranges and refrigerators, in addition to what we have out, which is boiler preventative maintenance and sanitation. And there are various others that will be shortly advertised. In terms of where we are, we have placed significant number of orders for various materials, supplies throughout the facility, including stoves, refrigerators. In excess of 100 of them have been ordered. There are multiple issues related to them, relating to supply chain issues, delivery dates, maintenance issues on location, storage locate problems on location, and related matters. We've retained multiple contractors as recent as yesterday, and this has been ongoing. And we expect, we've been having multiple meetings to get that off of the ground, to address multiple sites with a heavy concentration on the Stanley villages. Equipment orders for doors, elevators, cleaning, camera solutions, security solutions are all have been placed, orders have been issued. And I'm happy to report as recent as a few hours ago, emergency lighting supplies were delivered to Jeffrey's Towers. So orders are starting to come in. There are supply chain related issues. As I've repeatedly stated, I'm trying to be as brief as possible. I hope that that gives you a status report of some of the multiple items that we are working on pretty much round the clock.
Chair, also just to piggyback on what Jerry mentioned.
One more thing, John.
Go ahead.
And it's very important to note, there is significant work in front of us, extensive, significant work. So we're just touching the tip of the iceberg at this point. Training sessions are being established and will be set up. I will be inviting specific individuals to come to that training. Of course, the board is more than welcome to attend as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, John.
I was just gonna, you took a little bit off. So you'll see on one of the items tonight that the board is taking action on a new management software that will be transitioning over. I know I see some of the staff on here. They have been eagerly waiting and fist fighting 10 masks for decades now. So that system will go into place and it will be a light year of fixes for some of the challenges here. Everything from maintenance to equipment management to property management to point and click recertifications and interims and everything, to document uploads, to photographs of before and after maintenance, time and date stamped. So it is definitely going to be a huge step forward. You know, I couldn't thank the staff for their patience. I know one of the property managers was on earlier talking about 9 months. Some of the staff have been here for years and had challenges. So my hope is that that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But as Jerry said, there is a significant amount of work that has to be done here. We are still operating under the declaration and will continue to do so until we are able to get a great majority of the items stabilized. Staffing is a huge challenge right now. We've been advertising and continue to advertise for maintenance staff. We've interviewed, I believe, upwards of eight to 10 now. We're going to be interviewing more. If anyone knows anyone interested or has people that are interested in maintenance or temporary staff as well, please have them contact the authority or just go on our website to fill out the applications that are posted there. We're continuing to hire contractors, as Jerry mentioned, to fill some of the huge voids. We have received some recent resignations and positions that we're going to have to fill. I do plan on making some acting decisions to fill some of those areas administratively, but we're going to need a lot of staff to continue to build back sort of some of the framework that the authority didn't just lose in the last year, but throughout the COVID pandemic and even before.
And by the way, what I neglected to report on is the heat issues throughout various places throughout. And I'm again happy to report that what we've achieved in the last 60 days is significant, and probably more has been done relative to the heat issue in the last 60 days than has been done in the prior 5 years.
Yeah, agreed. One of the items that we'll be segueing off now, and I'll be turning this over for a presentation, or actually hopefully Beth and I will be, because I don't know how to share our screen. As you know, the Housing Authority received the Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant. That is one of the premier HUD opportunities for revitalizations of areas throughout the country. And Stanley the Housing Authority was awarded with Stanley being the target several years ago. That planning process kind of stalled a little bit, but we have picked up the pieces thanks to Rick and Nick and everyone else on the team that's been working hard that you'll hear from tonight. But essentially, the Choice Planning Grant is the first step to the revitalization process leading towards a Choice Implementation Grant. And the implementation grant is when the money comes. So your goal really is you work through the planning grant process, which we've been doing now, and which, as you heard, I've asked the chair to form now a board committee that will work more hands-on with the professionals and the other people that are working on this process, who have been, I will tell you, tirelessly working, for at least the 5 months that I've been here, and I know a long time before, on this sort of draft to this point. There is a drafting process that goes on. That's the first step. That draft is essentially due in February to HUD. It is not the final document by any means, but it's a draft. That draft will then be honed and finalized, and a final plan will be created, which will then be memorialized by a board action, probably in May, I'm assuming. And then the plan will be submitted in its final form down to Washington in June. For some more details on this, I would like to introduce Rick, who's going to then say some words and then bring in the team to kind of go through that process. And Beth Ann, you want to give, Rick, who do you want to give the screen to?
It will go to Tracy Scott.
Okay, Beth Ann, you want to find that?
And
go ahead, Rick.
Okay, so just, I know you guys had a lot on your plate tonight, so I will be brief. I just want to let you know the folks who are here today that are part of the planning team. On behalf of the city, we have Jim Rotella, who is the acting planner, who the city is the lead in the neighborhood plan, because a choice plan is bigger than just the Stanley site. It's the whole West Side neighborhood. You'll see the map today. I'm not sure if I saw Dr. Cologne from Stockton Center for Community Engagement on or not. I couldn't tell because we've got a couple pages of folks today. But they are, Stockton is the lead on the people side. They've done all the resident surveys and outreach. Of course, we have Nick Cangelozzi, who you all know as Michael's representative. Michael's is the lead on the housing side. And Claudia Bitron is here from Thrive in Design, if I'm saying that right. It's formerly Kitchen. Claudia is our planning coordinator for this grant, putting the pieces together. And Tracy Lay Scott of Urban Practice, who is really the lead on the housing side, putting that piece together, and is going to give the presentation today with respect to what you're going to see. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy so she can start her review.
So I'm having a problem sharing my screen.
Beth, are you want to take me out as a co-host and maybe make Tracy a co-host? Beth? Beth. Uh-oh. All right. Remove co-host permission. I think I have to remove you, Beth. Should I do that? All right. I just removed Beth.
Sorry, okay, now I'm back.
That's okay. All right. And then I'm going to then just give it to Tracy if I can find her. Because I think you may have changed it over to me, Beth. Where's Tracy? There you are, Tracy. Make co-host. How about that? There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you gave it to me, Beth. Go ahead, Trace.
That's it.
Yeah. So Claudia or Rick, did you want to start?
So I mean, I'll just go over just the beginning here. We're going to present like a general update of where we are, and really I think make sure the board has a good understanding of the entirety of what we're trying to accomplish with the plan and what we've been working on. I think from there, just Tracy, if you could just start going through your presentation.
Okay.
Hey, Rick, can I say, just insert real quick?
Yeah.
So just so the board understands, one of the choice goals is essentially to work through a framework that revitalizes a community and not just a site. Those you may remember, Hope 6 talked about that was a site for site revitalization program where you would knock down a building and then you would build back some more buildings on that same exact site in a different configuration or something like that. Choice neighborhood actually is sort of that on steroids. So it looks at not just the individual site you're looking to do a revitalization on, but it looks at an entire neighborhood and a community and then sees options where you can partner to leverage resources to do other things. So it's not just, hey, we're going to do a bunch of housing and that's it. We'll see you later. Bye. It's, how do you create community space? How do you build back better, smarter, more efficient? How do you look at the footprint widening? So your site, you're not just specific to a specific site or a building footprint.
And John, and that's great. I want to say one thing. So if those on the Zoom that remember the Hope 6 that Atlantic City got for Shore Park and Shore Terrace, our Hope 6 is actually much more like a choice neighborhood because the partnership with the CRDA, we looked at the entire community, from the Northeast Inlet all the way through to, Carolina, I guess, South Carolina Avenue. So we went off, what John is saying, almost every other Hope 6 in the country, except for Atlantic City and Pleasantville that I know of, built back on site for the most part. We did a whole neighborhood revitalization, all the stuff in the inlet, all the way down, all the new housing. We intermixed our housing. We did the time, the Ushery Daycare Center, the Boys and Girls Club, things like that. Worked with the school for the Pennsylvania Avenue School. That was all part of our Hope 6. So this plan is where HUD has moved, and the choice plan is a lot closer to what we did as a Hope 6 plan. So I just wanted to make, you're all more familiar in Atlantic City with what choice could really do for this part of town, because we did it in that other part of town already.
So we're looking at Stanley Homes Village, which is outlined in red, and we're also looking at the West Side neighborhood. This is a 2-year planning process. We are getting ready to submit the draft plan. So we have about 6 months left. It's a really great process because we're combining, we're talking about housing, we're talking about people, and we're talking about neighborhood. We have 3 different task forces that are formed with ongoing meetings. The goal is to combine people programs that lift residents' lives with neighborhood projects that improve the neighborhood and better housing. And all 3 of these things combine together to really improve residents' lives and how they're living today. Like I said before, we have 6 months left. We're getting ready to submit the draft plan, and we'd really like your approval on what we're presenting to you today. And we also like your engagement going forward, because we feel it's very important to have your feedback and input into the plan that we're going to present to you today. Again, it's just the same thing, housing neighborhood people. We're going to try and go pretty quickly here. Claudia, would you like to talk about the early action activities?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. A part of the Choice Neighborhoods program is to identify opportunities for projects that can be implemented while we are working on the transformation plan. So this effort started in 2021. We are, as Tracy mentioned, only 6 months away from the completion of the transformation plan. And for the next 6 months, we will be working on this specific piece, the early action activities. So we worked with the community of Stanley Homes through meetings, community meetings, through surveys to identify potential projects that are small in scale, that do not require a significant investment, and that can be completed with the funding that was provided by HUD for the Choice program, to get these projects done in a way to start encouraging change and transformation in the community. So they're supposed to be visual and visible projects. And what the community has selected as projects that we are moving forward with are streetscape projects, streetscape improvement projects that are going to be focused on MLK Boulevard, a series of community mural projects focused primarily on the community center at Stanley Homes, and what we call community book arcs, which are maybe some of the members of the board have seen book arcs throughout the city. There are a few of them where we basically have public bookshelves with books that are available to the community, where people can borrow and or take books at no cost. So these are features that the community has selected in conversations we had in the past summer as projects that we should start focusing on in the next 6 months. You will notice that one of the questions we have for you at the end of this presentation is going to be your approval and your involvement in the procurement of people who will be helping us implement this project. So we have already identified partners in the city, organizations and institutions that have experience with these types of projects. And that includes the city of Atlantic City, includes Atlantic Care, and other partners who will be moving these projects forward. So we would like to have your attention for that, specifically for the procurement piece. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, Tracy. And I'll be quick. I think Executive Director Clark gave us 15 minutes. I think we're already 12 minutes into it. So I apologize for that. But really, the success of this plan starts with the residents, period. You know, our job as professionals is to guide their vision and make sure we stay on track and make sure we can implement. But by and large, it starts with the residents. So this team here has engaged copious amounts of resident meetings and also local stakeholder meetings. There's been a tremendous amount of coffee discussions, you know, late evening presentations with local businesses, local religious institutions, local recreation facilities, schools, et cetera. So this is truly a grassroots initiative. And so it's been tremendous. We've also brought residents on tours of other Choice Neighborhoods developments to hear them firsthand tell us what they like about these communities and what may need improvement, so we can provide them the best homes into the future. And then furthermore, really Atlantic City, a driving factor in design is the flood zone. And so we've been very open about some of the limitations that are presented and some of the beautification that we can provide as a result of ensuring that the communities all are well above base flood elevations and so forth. So this community can be resilient for many decades to come. And then lastly, we'll talk a lot about some of the offsite properties in this presentation. And next slide, Tracy, we'll keep moving here. This is a 1-minute video relative to an amazing community day that we had with the residents. So Tracy, go ahead.
We're out here today to celebrate the commencement of the Stanley Homes Choice Neighborhood Planning effort. And we're really engaging the residents to learn more about what their desires are and what their hope and expectation is for the future of Stanley Homes Village. And we're really breaking it into 3 categories: housing, neighborhood, and people.
I like to live safe. I like to feel safe. And these problems are really old, so there's so much that we can do to keep them up. If it was like a better neighborhood, they probably wouldn't want to leave, especially if they got things to do around here, like sports and arts and crafts and gardening, things like that. Well, my thing is a roof is a roof. I just want the kids to be safer. Residents are the ones that's actually going to be living out here. We're not going to be living out here. So I think that it's best for them to have hands-on and make them feel good that they were a part of the selection process in this from the Neighborhood Choice Grant Program.
So we help destroy this community through selling drugs. Now I've been blessed to have a job where I can come back and help build the city back, and definitely Stanley Home Village where I lived at. I helped destroy it, and now I'm here to help rebuild it.
Thanks, Tracy. That's just a quick clip of an amazing community day we had with residents. And Claudia has thousands of pages of notes and input from the residents that has really helped us drive this plan to where it is today. Tracy, the next slide is another 1-minute video relative to a day we had residents from Stanley Homes, and we took them to Branch Village, which is another CNI neighborhood, to tell us what their thoughts are, so to help us continue to guide this plan. So Tracy, the next quick clip here. Thanks, Tracy. And the feedback there was really powerful in terms of the excitement that tour led to. And so this is just a home. It breaks down many of the themes that the residents want. And as you heard, safety and off-street parking and green spaces and areas for the kids to play. And so all of this resident-led input is helping the team here guide the overall plan for the revitalization of Stanley Homes. Next slide, Tracy. And these are some of the design influence that we are considering when presenting the implementation plan for Stanley Homes, and a lot of great input from these building types. So Tracy, the next slide. These are just some pictures of amenity spaces in terms of community gardens, recreation facilities, health and wellness opportunities. Entrepreneurism. There's a lot of residents here that want an opportunity to, maybe have their own business. And so that's all going to be considered in some of our mixed use areas, and always celebrating the rich history of Stanley Homes in the community. So that'll be a big piece of the overall plan. These are just some ideas of mixed use, mixed income properties here. And so the idea here is that we want to activate some of the ground floor with commercial, with recreation, with fitness, with offices and so forth, and then have some of the residential above. Stanley Homes will be a mixed income community. Part of what HUD requires is not only replacement of the 420 homes, but also a broad range of income. So there will be 80% to 120%, what we like to call workforce housing. There's also going to be market rate homes. So Stanley Homes will consist of a broad range of incomes. We also have the idea of vouchers. Some of the residents will be given an opportunity as they choose to take a voucher to live in Atlantic City or perhaps move elsewhere. And so when we talk about the idea of revitalizing Stanley Homes, and we'll get into the on-site, it's not going to be to rebuild all these homes back on site. We're going to look at strategic areas in and around the neighborhood, as well as some residents will have the ability of upward mobility and move into areas in the Atlantic City and maybe elsewhere throughout the region in higher opportunity areas, which residents are very excited about. Next slide. These are part of the amenity spaces that just really excite residents. We want to promote common areas for residents to have events, to celebrate each other, to really be happy and excited about where they live. Next slide, Tracy. These are all building types that we've presented to the residents to get inspiration from them. And so we will be using pieces of these finished communities to finalize the overall aesthetics and cladding materials utilized in the implementation strategy. Next slide, Tracy. And here's really the theme of all of it. It's resiliency and it's energy efficiency, and recognizing some of the weather events in Atlantic City and so forth. We want to build a community that is going to be resilient for hundreds of years to come. And so when you look at that, it's how high we're elevating the site. And so these are plans that we've presented to residents and stakeholders as to how we're addressing elevating Stanley Homes almost 8 feet higher than where it is today, and being able to celebrate walkable areas into the homes, green spaces, parking areas behind the communities, accessibility requirements. And this has gone over extremely well with stakeholders. Next slide, Tracy. And here's just more inspiration. We know Stanley Homes has a rich history. We know the West Side has a rich history. We know Kentucky Ave has a rich history. And so we're not going to forget that. And so we're going to continue to think of opportunities to celebrate the past and also be excited about the future. Next slide. Tracy, with this, I'll turn it over to you. And I know Director Clark, you're probably tapping your thumb or watch right now. So we're going to wrap this up for you very quickly.
So for the Choice Neighborhood effort, HUD requires us to build one-to-one replacement housing. There's 420 existing homes on the site, so we're going to build back 420 units. HUD also wants to see mixed income developments. So in addition to the 420 replacement homes, we'll also be including workforce and market rate housing. We will be providing a total of 538 homes. When we first started looking at the site, we wanted to explore a couple different density options. So the first one we looked at is what does the site look like if we develop 538 homes on it? While we went through this exploration process, we determined that we really like the low density option, but I want to at least present to you these other options so you can see why it led us to the low density option. In this option, we have towns over flats mostly throughout the whole site, and we have a large 4 to 5 story mixed use building facing Brown Park, in addition to a 4-story building at the Newark Avenue School. This is too intense for Stanley. So then we looked at the 420 option, which is pretty much the same thing, except for the building that faces Brown Park, it is a little bit less dense, and there's more townhomes and towns over flats in that block. We still think that this is inappropriate for Stanley Homes. And what we're really looking at is the 295 unit option. And this option is really great because it provides residents with a variety of home types. We have twin homes, townhomes, towns over flats, and a mixed use 4-story building. We also have a standalone community building, which also has additional activities for children. And in our mixed use building along Brown Park, we have a health and wellness center and retail where residents can start those businesses that they wanted to start. We also are breaking up the super block. We're providing safe parking inside the interior of the block, and we're providing open spaces throughout for residents to enjoy. This concept also fits in very well with the neighborhood fabric. And so Stanley will not look like it is Stanley Homes. It will actually look like it's the neighborhood itself. Now, when we looked at the lower density option, that's only 295 units, but we would like to build back 538, which include the mixed income units. And in order to do that, we are looking at the vouchers that Nick described, and we're also looking at sites in Atlantic City. These are the sites that we're looking at in Atlantic City, and I'm going to take you through them one at a time. The first site is Indiana Avenue School. It's an existing school. We're going to rehabilitate it, and we're going to provide 40 to 50 units in there for senior residents. This school is located right at the intersection of Stanley Homes and Brown Park, so it's a really great location. Then we're looking at Absecon Boulevard. This is 21 units of townhomes over flat apartments. It's right next to the Meadows. We're also looking at the Ginsburg Bakery. This is 50 units. It's in a garden style apartment, which is a 3-story walk-up building, and it's at the bakery site. We are also looking at Melrose Avenue. This is a combination of a mixed-use building and townhomes over flat apartments for a total of 126 units. In addition to the vouchers, this is really great as a first phase. So we're looking at trying to get site control of this property as soon as possible. We also looked at Massachusetts Avenue. This is about 57 units in a mixed-use 4-story building. And we looked at the Triangle site. Again, another mixed-use building. It's right across the street from the Indiana Avenue School, right across the street from Stanley and Brown Park. Really great opportunity to revitalize the neighborhood in all these 3 sites that work together. Another key piece of the choice plan is homeownership. We've heard from a lot of stakeholders in the neighborhood that they'd like to revitalize the homes in the west side. Also, residents would like to live in Venice Park. And so when we start looking at homeownership, which is a part of the neighborhood plan, we're going to consider all of those wishes from our stakeholders. And we're also going to look at available properties that the city might have to assist us with that. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Claudia.
Claudia, you on? Or I can play the role of Claudia.
Okay.
Claudia,
Yeah,
you're back on?
here.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I start talking without noticing that I was muted. So this is really just to kind of recap some of the key points that we wanted to ask for your attention, board members, related to action items that we really need your input for. So one is related to support to the Choice Neighborhood effort. Primarily, we understand that there have been a few changes in staffing for the Housing Authority, and we would like to have a primary contact who can be involved with the Choice Neighborhood effort on a regular basis. We have a lot of meetings, we have a lot of communication by email on a regular basis, and we need to have a point person dedicated to Choice Neighborhoods. Second, as Rick mentioned before, if we could have members of the board more directly involved with the choice effort through a committee so that we can move forward with decisions. There will be a lot of decisions to be made in the next 6 months before we complete the plan. That would be tremendously helpful. And finally, also, as we understand, there's going to be an opportunity once the new executive director is selected to potentially bring a choice coordinator who will be helping the Housing Authority internally transition from planning to implementation as the Housing Authority moves into an application for implementation. So this position will be very important, and we just want to emphasize the importance in as you make decisions about the next steps in management. In terms of the day-to-day of the process, Stockton and the Michaels organization are 2 key partners in this effort. Michaels as the lead housing partner, Stockton as the lead people partner. Both organizations have agreements with the Housing Authority to carry out their activities, and their agreements have both expired. So we need to renew their agreement so they can continue the work through completion in July. And we would appreciate your attention in any steps that are required to get these extensions done as quickly as possible.
Those are on the agenda for tonight, by the way.
Wonderful, thank you. That's as quickly as possible as it can be, right? In terms of procurement, for the early action activities, as I mentioned earlier, we need to engage new partners to help complete the early action projects. Basically, we need HUD to release approximately $100,000 for the completion of these projects. These projects will be done in 6 months. And these partners we have already identified, and we have a proposal that was circulated to the team, to the Housing Authority, to get going. And we need the board approval on this proposal, and then initial or next steps for procurement. We need to get these organizations into an agreement with the Housing Authority so that funding can flow from the Housing Authority to organizations for them to complete the project.
Excuse me, how is the procurement going to impact Part 200 of the CFR? And are we going to be procuring on behalf of the grant? Its source of funds is irrelevant. If it's being procured by the agency, it has to go through our internal processes.
Correct. It will be, it's got to be procured through the
Yeah.
Housing Authority.
It's under the CFR, Chair.
Yeah.
We'll go
Okay.
over that.
All
But
right.
again, you know, a lot of this stuff is anticipating the approval of the implementation
Okay,
component.
I just, because this is the first I'm hearing of it. So
Yeah.
any news that needs to be relating to procurement, please keep me in the loop.
Go ahead, Claudia.
Thank you. And the next two items are related specifically to the housing strategy. As Nick and Tracy presented to you in a very quick way, the bones of the housing strategy, we would like to get your input, your feedback on the housing strategy, any questions you would like us to address, because if there are any changes that we need to make in response to your feedback, this is the time to address those changes. We have, as it was noticed before, a submission to HUD due in approximately 2 to 3 weeks. And we would like to have as much of the housing strategy included in that submission, but we would want to have any document going to HUD to be reviewed and to be at least have your comments at this point related to the housing strategy. And finally, as a key part of the housing strategy, the Melrose property, which is a property that has been in discussion for a couple of years, if not more, with the Housing Authority, with the city of Atlantic City. This is a property that could have a tremendous impact in the process of redevelopment of not only Stanley Homes, but really emphasizing the opportunity for mixed income housing options in Atlantic City. So we would like to have your attention on the steps that need to occur with the city of Atlantic City in terms of site control to allow for the Melrose site to be formally included as part of the transformation plan for Stanley Homes.
And John, can I just sort of go back in time a little bit so the board, because I know we had a lot of board turnover as it relates to this site. A couple of years ago, the city, the Housing Authority, and the CRDA had reached a tentative agreement for the Housing Authority to transfer that Massachusetts Avenue site that it owns to the CRDA, and for the city to transfer the Melrose site to the Housing Authority for this consideration of this project in a trade. Resolutions were actually passed authorizing that. And we haven't moved forward. Some of the things of not moving forward were HUD technical things, you know, that I had brought up at the time when I got brought into the loop, that, you know, we have to do a HUD Part 58 environmental review. There are certain things we have to do to actually take possession of that property. Since then, you know, there's been talk of different things going on at that property and things like that. That property has always been, for probably 5 or 6 years, when folks talked about doing Stanley, as a good source of a first phase. That Melrose site was originally going to be part of the Housing Authority's Hope 6 site. And at the end of the day, we did not need it. And that's when the property was turned back over to the city. So there's a long-term planning that the Housing Authority was part of that site. And it would enable a first phase, that with vouchers, to allow us to maybe vacate one of the villages and really move this along. And time is sort of the essence on, we can't have Stanley there indefinitely, right? We have to move it along quickly. So I just bring that up. We were in a position to actually take that site at one time, and it's then went into limbo. And I think it needs an engagement again with the city to make sure they still are interested in giving us that site, because I've heard at times that maybe things have changed. But we have to make a decision on whether that's the approach we're going to go. We have to find out from the city whether they're still on board and bring the CRDA back into the loop. And if we are, Michael's had done a lot of preliminary site investigation, environmental investigation, and preliminary plans. That could actually be part of our implementation grant application, that we had a first site planned and approved, with financing from the HMFA, a contingent upon the choice implementation grant, which I think in the scoring of the implementation grant, that would move us up to the top, near the top of the list. It would almost, in my opinion, ensure that we would get funding. Just wanted to give that history on that lot.
So as the board heard tonight, there's a lot of moving parts here. Time does not stand still on these plans. So things change, things move. So that's kind of why I think, Chair, if you can appoint a board committee to really dig into some of this stuff, at least for the next couple of weeks, and then going forward, that would be hugely helpful. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Cologne, who I know is on this call somewhere in the background where she stays, and Nick and Tracy and Claudia and all of the professionals and team members who continue to meet and who have met pretty much over the last couple of years with residents. These are resident-driven plans, and they need to be incorporated into the overall components with the help of the board and the input of the board. What we want to try to do is blend the residents' needs with sort of the board's plans and create a document and create something here of a plan that we can show to HUD that has input and has fingerprints from both of those sides on it, and also is doable. We don't want to present something where HUD says, okay, this is great, here's the implementation, now go do it. And we go, oh my goodness, we can't do this. So it's going to take a lot more work. A lot of work has gone into this. So I want to thank all the professionals and really Michael's for rolling their sleeves up and leading on this. But we really do need to start focusing on this now, particularly over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then the months to follow, leading up to that final, creation, I should say, of the plan when it comes back to the board. So that being said, Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions from the board members. I want to thank all the professionals, obviously, for coming on and doing the presentation. Great job, as always. And that will conclude my report. Rick?
Okay, thank you, everyone. Claudette, we will get you that information that is needed. Does any of the board members have any quick comments or questions? I am going to set up a committee meeting. Everyone will receive a copy of the presentation. And as we all know, we've been working on Stanley for the last several years, meeting with different stakeholders throughout the city. The need for Stanley to come down is nothing new, as seen in this presentation. It has been a hot topic for us. It may be new to some people out there that might be on Zoom now and interested in Stanley, but it has been a hot topic for us for several years. So I want to thank you all for the presentation, and in the Michael's group with everything that you do, and Rick as well. Any quick comments from any of the commissioners? Is anyone on mute and trying to speak?
I don't see anyone, Chair.
Okay. All right. We will revisit this at a later time, but thank you very much. Everything looks great. the slides, the presentation. I know the input from the community. I see Commissioner Gibay was also in one of those pictures. I definitely appreciate it. Definitely takes a village to redevelop Atlantic City and give people better quality housing with everything that's happening at Stanley Home Village and the outdated housing stock that we have here in the great city of Atlantic City. So thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, Chairwoman.
Okay. Mr. Clark, is there anything else?
No, that's all I had, Chair.
Okay. Rick, we can move forward with the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. Next item is item number 8, other business and communications.
There is none. I know we have a need for closed session. Is that something we're going to do now or?
You could, it's really at your pleasure, Chair. You can go through the resolutions and we can cut the rest of the professionals and staff loose and then have the board go into the closed session because it is going to be a while.
Okay, we could go into the agenda items.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 9 are the resolutions proposed for adoption. There are 6 of them this evening, numbered sequentially from 9621 through 9626. Resolution 9621-01-23 is a resolution entitled Resolution of the Commissioners of the Housing Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City, ratifying and approving emergency actions and contracts required for services between November 3rd, 2022 and January 23rd, 2023. May I have a motion and second?
Motion Tweedle.
Thank you. A second?
Dorsey, second.
Thank you, Commissioner. The resolution is now open for discussion.
We call the vote.
Thank you.
Question. A lot question.
Commissioner Gay?
Yes. For resolution 926, 210123, do we have a list of all these contractors that we have in there for this resolution? Do we have anything? Because I see we have like different stuff on there.
Yeah, it's in the payment. It's in the payment of bills list. I can get you that separately, Commissioner, if you like.
All right, thank you.
I just like to thank all the professionals, Jerry and John, Chair, Joe, for all the hard work of getting all these emergency services done. I know it's been a tall order, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel, so I'm happy about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, we could call the vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay,
Abstain.
thank you. Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Johnson,
Okay.
Yes, sorry about that.
thank you. Commissioner Tweedle
Yes.
and Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
That resolution passes 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Next resolution, 9622-01-23. This is a resolution entitled Resolution of the Commissioners of the Housing Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City, authorizing the interim executive director to enter into a contract with Management Computer Services, Inc., MCS, for the provision of computer software, maintenance, training, and support services. May I have a motion and a second?
So move.
Dorsey,
Thank you.
second Marshall.
Thank you. The resolution is open for discussion.
I want to thank John for explaining the importance of a new software. I'm really excited about this. We've discussed this several times in executive committee, and I'm so happy to see it here as an agenda item. Having a new software that works for Housing Authority is very important with your day-to-day operations. So, okay, we could call a vote.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
That resolution passes 5 in favor, none against. Next is Resolution 9623-01-23, a resolution entitled Resolution of the Commissioners of the Housing Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City, authorizing the interim executive director to execute the First Amendment to the memorandum of agreement with the Stockton Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning. May I have a motion and second?
Motion. Tweedle.
Second, Cadet.
Thank you. The resolution is open for discussion.
Call a vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
That resolution is passed, 5 in favor, none against. Next, Resolution 9624-01-23. Resolution entitled, Resolution of the Commissioners of the Housing Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City, ratifying and approving the attached pre-check writing report and disbursements of bills therefore for the months of November and December 2022. May I have a motion and second?
So moved.
Second, Tweedle.
Thank you. It is open for discussion.
Okay, we could call a vote.
Seeing none. Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
And that resolution has passed, 5 in favor, none against. Next is Resolution 9625-01-23. This is a resolution entitled Resolution of the Commissioners of the Housing Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City, approving and authorizing a change order for the Qualified Purchasing Agent Services Contract. May I have a motion and second?
Motion, Tweedle.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. It is open for discussion.
Question. Then we just approve of this, like, I don't know, 3 months ago that we what's it called? We got a contract for the QPA 3 months ago.
Chair, I can answer.
Yes.
So, yeah, this was actually, Eli, this was during the summer that you did. The amount of the work, because of the emergency declaration, exceeded their contract amount. So this is an actual expansion of that, allowing them to continue to work while we're on the street now advertised for that service. Both this resolution and the next resolution are both now being advertised to bring in contractors. So those original amounts now allow us, this will expand that so they can continue to complete work while we're doing the new RFP for their service.
So usually what was the award for this for this services like previously, like what's like the range? Because see, over here we said 140 to 200,000.
That was the amount. The original contract amount was the 140. And that was an initial projection based on the work at the time in August before the emergency declaration. But because all that hit, the emergency declaration and the additional work, this expands it from 140 to 200. Same contract that allows the expansion of that contract.
John, one question. If I may,
Dorsey?
John, was this expansion also part of because our QPA quit and we lost other staff?
I was going to say, yes, we had staffing reductions, which required the expansion of work in addition to the emergency tasks that came in as part of the emergency declaration. So yes, it was both a staffing and a projection. And again, just so the board knows, there was never any comparable to put this as a comparison when that 140 contract was made. So at the time, that was pretty much a number, essentially saying, okay, we can bring them in for this and see what happens during that 1 year period. So this now will allow that work to continue while we go out and do a formal procurement process to get bids in and what have you.
But it haven't been 1 year or 6 months. It's just been 3 months, and then we are stayed in the contract from 140 to 200,000. I just think the number is just a little bit kind of shaky for me because they awarded a contract for 1 year for 140, but now
it's been 7 months, Eli. They were awarded in August.
And Commissioner Gabay, I also want to add a lot of the work that the team has been doing was discussed in the executive committee. If you remember, Jerry shared his screen to go over everything that he has been doing and what he had to build. That was discussed in the last executive committee meeting that we had. And that also goes along with the next resolution as well. A lot of that was explained to us in executive committee meeting.
Yeah, and he's 6 months into the contract, Eli, 6 months.
Can I ask Jerry to give us a brief synopsis of the additional services that he's going to be providing in this expansion of contract? Because I understand there's training and there's bringing on the new computer systems and teaching staff how to use it. I think the board would be served better to understand exactly why we're expanding the contract and what additional scopes that Jerry's going to be handling within that.
Okay, Jerry, you could proceed. If you could touch on what Commissioner Dorsey said and touch on a little bit of what you discussed in executive committee. I know we spent probably about 45 minutes discussing the executive committee, but if you could spend about 2 minutes just going over, just highlighting some of those things that you've shared with us.
I will be even more brief. There's been the original scope of the engagement has changed radically and drastically. There was significant increased work that needed to be performed, and I'm being very careful with my choice of words for various reasons. One, primarily because some of this stuff is attorney-client privilege and is more appropriate for discussion in closed session. But in general, the scope of the work has greatly exceeded the initial scope. And the reality is I've been there for almost 9 months, even though I was retained by the authority directly from you guys in August, as John had said, but I was previously engaged by the Housing Authority through another vendor. So I've been working for a much longer period of time. Second to that, the workload has increased exponentially. All right, I was originally told what kind of staff I would have. It turned out not to be the case. I was also told what policies were there. It turned out not to be the case. So effectively, we have taken over the procurement function in its entirety, and you only get to see me at these meetings, and I'm the front person, but there's an entire team behind me that is working exclusively on work that is being conducted at the Housing Authority, including putting together policies, procedures, reviewing past practices, and all of the items that were procured